There are moments in life that divide everything into before and after. For Sarah Mitchell, that moment came on an ordinary Wednesday night, when she found her husband of 19 years in their bed with someone she called a friend. But this isn't a story about betrayal. It's about what happened 10 years later, when he saw her again, and realized the woman he destroyed had become someone he could never reach again. What she became would haunt him far more than anger ever could. Because sometimes revenge isn't loud. Some victories don't scream. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is become untouchable. Before we continue, tell me, where are you watching from tonight? I love seeing how far these stories travel. And if you believe in second chances, or powerful transformations, make sure you're subscribed. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Sarah Mitchell was 41 years old when her world collapsed. She taught elementary school for 17 years, the kind of teacher kids remember decades later, not because she was flashy but because she genuinely cared. She had soft brown hair that she usually wore in a practical ponytail, laugh lines around her eyes from years of smiling at children's jokes, and a quiet strength that came from choosing kindness even when it was harder than being harsh. Her husband, Marcus, was a regional sales manager for a pharmaceutical company. He traveled often, 3 or 4 days a week sometimes, but Sarah never complained. She trusted him completely, the way you trust gravity to keep you grounded. They had built a life together that looked exactly like what they had dreamed of in their 20s, a 3-bedroom house in a good school district, 2 cars paid off, a golden retriever named Bailey, and enough savings that they didn't panic when the water heater broke. Their marriage wasn't passionate anymore, but Sarah had made peace with that. She thought passion was for young people, and that what they had was better: partnership, history, comfort. She was wrong about so many things back then. Marcus had always been charming in that effortless way some men are. But somewhere in the last few years, something had shifted. He became distant, checking his phone constantly, taking calls in the garage, working later and later. Sarah noticed but convinced herself she was being paranoid. Marriage required trust, she told herself. So she swallowed her suspicions and focused on her students, her garden, her routine. Jessica Brennan had been Sarah's friend for 6 years. They met at a neighborhood barbecue and bonded over their shared love of true crime podcasts and terrible reality television. They had coffee every Sunday morning at the corner cafe, shared complaints about their jobs, and texted each other stupid memes throughout the week. Sarah considered her one of her closest friends, someone she trusted with her insecurities and fears. That trust made what happened so much worse, because betrayal from a stranger is one thing, but betrayal from someone you loved is a wound that never quite heals the same way. The night everything fell apart started normally enough. Sarah had stayed late at school for parent-teacher conferences and came home around 7:30, exhausted and looking forward to a glass of wine and mindless television. Marcus's car was in the driveway, which surprised her because he had said he'd be in Cleveland until Thursday. She felt a flutter of happiness, thinking he'd come home early to surprise her. She walked through the front door, noticed his jacket on the chair, heard sounds from upstairs. Music playing softly. She kicked off her shoes, hung up her coat, and climbed the stairs. Their bedroom door was slightly open, and through the gap, Sarah saw something that would replay in her mind for years afterward. Marcus and Jessica, tangled in sheets that Sarah had washed that morning, in the bed Sarah had made before leaving for work. For a moment, her brain couldn't process what she was seeing. Then reality crashed in like cold water. Jessica saw her first, her eyes going wide. Marcus turned, and Sarah watched his face cycle through shock, guilt, and then something worse: resignation. Not panic. Not desperate apology. Resignation, as if he'd been waiting for this moment and was almost relieved it had finally arrived. Sarah didn't scream. She didn't throw things or collapse crying. She just stood there, frozen, her mind cataloging absurd details. The lamp on the nightstand was new. There was a wine glass on her side of the bed, lipstick stain on the rim. Jessica's dress was draped over the chair Sarah usually put her clothes on. These small violations felt almost worse than the big one, like they'd been playing house in her life, casually erasing her from her own space. Then Sarah turned and walked downstairs, her body moving on autopilot while her mind went completely blank. She sat in her car in the driveway for 20 minutes, staring at the steering wheel, waiting for tears that wouldn't come. Eventually, Marcus came outside, fully dressed, looking like he was heading to a meeting. He opened the passenger door and sat down without asking. "I'm sorry you had to see that," he said, and his tone was so measured, so calm, that Sarah felt something crack inside her chest. Not her heart breaking. Something deeper. Her sense of reality. "How long?" she asked, her voice surprisingly steady. 8 months, he said, and Sarah did the math. 8 months. Their anniversary dinner. Her birthday. Thanksgiving. Christmas. 8 months of lies. "Why?" she asked, and he sighed like she'd asked him to explain something obvious. "I don't know, Sarah. Things just happened. You and we've been more like roommates than anything else for a while now." She just stared at him, this man she'd known for 21 years, and realized she didn't recognize him at all. "Jessica and we connect on a different level," he continued. "I didn't plan this. It just happened. But I can't keep pretending. I haven't been happy for a long time." There it was. The sentence that would echo in her head for months. "I want a divorce," he said. "I think it's best for both of us." And just like that, with the casual tone of someone canceling a subscription, he ended their marriage. Sarah nodded slowly. "Okay," she said, because what else was there to say? If you're still watching, you already know this isn't over. Part 2 drops next. Be there.